Chapter 1: The Crossroads. Amy Pendrick stared at the blinking cursor on her resignation email like it was a countdown timer to a bomb. Her finger hovered over the mouse, her pulse thrumming in her ears. This was it, the moment she'd been avoiding for months. The words were simple, polite, professional. Thank you for everything. I've learned so much. It's time for me to move on. But the weight behind them? That was monumental. She clicked send. The email whooshed away, and with it, 12 years of her life. 12 years of late nights, early mornings, and the kind of dedication that made her friends joke she was married to her job. She wasn't offended. They weren't wrong. Amy leaned back in her chair, staring at the framed motivational quote on her office wall. Dream big, work hard, stay humble. She had done all three, and now, she felt like someone had pulled the rug out from under her perfectly planned life. Her farewell party was sweet, almost painfully so. Balloons bobbed against the ceiling, and her coworkers, people she genuinely liked, hugged her, wished her luck, and promised to keep in touch. She believed them. Real friends were rare, and she had a few gems here. She tucked those promises into her heart like precious stones. That night, back in her apartment, Amy poured herself a generous glass of wine, then another. By the third, the old black and white Christmas movie playing on her TV blurred into a haze of twinkling lights and soft music. She sat cross-legged on the couch, staring at nothing, her mind a carousel of questions. What now? She had chased her dream job since high school, and she'd caught it. But now that she held it, it felt hollow. No upward mobility. No creative spark. Just endless campaigns for brands that didn't care about anything but numbers. She wanted more. Not more things. She had plenty of those. More purpose. Something that belonged to her. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. It's okay to let someone help, pumpkin. It's not weakness. It's love. She smiled at that. Dad always knew how to make life sound simple. By midnight, Amy had made a decision. A terrifying, exhilarating decision. She was going to start her own marketing firm. Small businesses, local shops, the kind of places that needed help but couldn't afford the big agencies. She could make a difference. And if she failed, well, at least the failure would be hers. The next morning, she packed her life into boxes and drove to her parents' house. The moment she walked through the door, her mom squealed like Amy had just returned from a decade-long expedition. Her dad enveloped her in a bear hug that smelled like coffee and sawdust. Pumpkin, he said, grinning ear to ear. Home sweet home. Amy laughed, the sound bubbling up like champagne. For the first time in months, she felt light. Scared, yes, but light. Chapter 2: Pumpkin Returns. Amy woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of her mother humming along to an old country song in the kitchen. For a moment, she lay there in her childhood bedroom, staring at the familiar ceiling fan spinning lazily above her. The posters of boy bands were long gone, replaced by framed family photos and a quilt her mom had made years ago. It was like stepping into a time capsule, comforting and slightly surreal. She padded down the hallway in fuzzy socks, her hair a tousled mess from sleep. Her dad was at the kitchen table, reading the newspaper like it was still 1998, glasses perched on his nose. He looked up and grinned when he saw her. Morning, pumpkin, he said, folding the paper. Coffee's hot, bacon's crispy. Life's good. Amy smiled, pouring herself a mug of coffee. You make it sound so simple. That's because it is, he replied, tapping the table for emphasis. People complicate things. You just need good food, good company, and a plan. Her mom turned from the stove, spatula in hand, and gave Amy a look that was equal parts love and interrogation. Speaking of plans, what's yours? You're not staying here forever, right? Amy laughed, sliding into a chair. No, Mom. I'm not moving back in permanently. I just need a little time to get things rolling. Her mom raised an eyebrow. Rolling where? Amy took a sip of coffee, savoring the warmth before answering. I'm starting my own marketing firm. Small businesses, local shops, the kind of places that need help but can't afford big agencies. Her dad's face lit up like someone had handed him front-row tickets to a classic rock concert. That's my girl, taking the reins, making her own way. Her mom, ever the realist, frowned slightly. That sounds risky. Amy shrugged. So is staying in a job that makes me miserable. I've got the skills. I've got the experience. I just need to make it happen. Her dad reached across the table and squeezed her hand. It's okay to let someone help, pumpkin. It's not weakness. It's love. Amy felt a lump in her throat. She nodded, blinking back the sudden sting of tears. Thanks, Dad. The rest of breakfast was filled with easy chatter. Her mom gossiping about the neighbors, her dad complaining about the price of lumber, Amy laughing at both. For the first time in months, she felt safe, like the world wasn't closing in on her. After breakfast, Amy set up her laptop on the dining room table. She filed the paperwork for her LLC, designed a simple logo, and started drafting a list of potential clients. Her fingers flew across the keyboard, fueled by caffeine and determination. By mid-afternoon, her phone buzzed. A text from Marcy. Got someone for you. My brother needs help with his bowling alley. Call me. Amy stared at the message, her heart doing a weird little flip. Marcy's brother. Jake. The guy she'd had a hopeless crush on all through high school. The guy who left for college and never looked back. She typed back quickly, sure. Tell me more. Marcy replied with a string of details, new equipment, great food, family-friendly vibe. And then the kicker, he really wants to grow the business. You're perfect for this. Amy smiled, excitement bubbling in her chest. Her first client. Her first real chance to prove herself. And maybe, just maybe, a chance to see if Jake Pendleton was still the kind of guy who made her stomach do somersaults. Chapter 3, The First Client. Amy stared at her phone for a full minute after Marcy's last text, her thumb hovering over the call button like it was a detonator. Jake Pendleton. The name alone was enough to send her brain spiraling back to high school, locker-lined hallways, pep rallies, and that one time she'd accidentally spilled orange soda on his sneakers. He'd laughed it off, easygoing and charming, while she'd wanted to crawl into a hole and live there forever. Now, 12 years later, she was about to call him. For business. Totally professional. Absolutely no reason for her stomach to feel like a blender on high speed. She hit call before she could overthink it. Hello. His voice was deeper than she remembered, smooth with a hint of gravel. It did something weird to her pulse. Hi, Jake. This is Amy Pendrick. Marcy gave me your number. She winced at how formal she sounded, like she was cold calling a stranger instead of talking to the guy who once helped her pass chemistry by explaining covalent bonds with Skittles. Amy. He sounded genuinely pleased. Wow, it's been, what, forever? Marcy said you're starting your own business. That's the plan? Amy said, forcing her voice into calm, confident territory. She mentioned you might need some marketing help for your bowling alley. Yeah, Jake said, a smile audible in his tone. Pendleton Lanes. It's been good, but I want to take it up a notch. More families, more leagues, maybe even birthday parties. Right now, it's mostly regulars and the occasional walk-in. Amy grabbed a notepad, scribbling furiously. Sounds like you've got a solid foundation. I'd love to come by, take a look, and see what we can do. Perfect, Jake said. How about tomorrow? Afternoon. Tomorrow works, Amy replied, her voice steady even as her brain screamed. Tomorrow? Already? What do I wear? What do I say? Do I still remember how to bowl? Great, Jake said, looking forward to it. When the call ended, Amy sat back, staring at her reflection in the dark screen of her laptop. Her cheeks were flushed, her heart doing a tap dance. This was business, strictly business. She was a professional woman with a plan, not a teenager doodling hearts in her notebook. Still, she couldn't help the tiny thrill that zipped through her at the thought of seeing him again. The next day, Amy pulled into the parking lot of Pendleton Lanes, her car crunching over gravel. The building was bigger than she expected. Sleek glass doors, bright signage, and a mural of bowling pins exploding like fireworks. The lot was well lit, just like Marcy said, and families were trickling in, kids bouncing with excitement. Inside, the air smelled like pizza and nostalgia. Arcade machines beeped in the corner, and the rhythmic crash of pins echoed through the lanes. Amy spotted Jake behind the counter, laughing with a customer. He looked good, better than good. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a navy polo that hugged his frame just enough to make Amy's brain short-circuit for a second. He turned, saw her, and his smile widened. Amy Pendrick, in the flesh. She grinned, walking up with what she hoped was casual confidence. Jake Pendleton, owner of this fine establishment. Guilty as charged, he said, leaning on the counter. You look great. Amy felt heat creep up her neck. Thanks. So do you. The place looks amazing. Come on, I'll give you the grand tour, Jake said, gesturing toward the lanes. Unless you want to start with a game? Amy laughed. Full disclosure, I haven't bowled since high school. Perfect, Jake said, grabbing a ball and spinning it like a pro. I'll go easy on you. Amy followed him down the polished floor, her heels clicking softly. She told herself this was research, market analysis, nothing more. But when Jake handed her a ball and their fingers brushed, sending a spark up her arm, she had a sinking feeling that this project was about to get a lot more complicated. Chapter 4 Sparks and Gutterballs. Amy stared down at the glossy wooden lane like it was a battlefield. The bowling ball in her hands felt heavier than her entire career trajectory. She adjusted her grip, squared her shoulders, and tried to remember the basics. Something about aiming for the arrows, keeping her wrists straight, and not launching the ball like a grenade. Jake stood a few feet away, arms crossed, grin firmly in place. You look like you're about to negotiate a merger, not roll a ball. Amy shot him a look. I take all challenges seriously. Good, he said, his eyes twinkling. Because this is serious business. Pride, honor, possibly pizza. She laughed, shaking her head. You're ridiculous. And yet, Jake said, gesturing toward the lane. You're still here. Amy inhaled, stepped forward, and swung the ball with what she hoped was grace. It hit the lane with a loud thunk, wobbled left, and then miraculously, knocked down 2 pins. She spun around, triumphant. 2. That's practically a strike. Jake chuckled. Sure, if you're playing in an alternate universe where 2 equals 10. Don't ruin my moment, Amy said, wagging a finger at him. I'm savoring this. Jake picked up his ball, moving with easy confidence. His arm flexed as he swung, and Amy tried very hard not to notice. The ball glided down the lane like it had a personal vendetta against the pins. Crash. All 10 toppled in perfect harmony. Amy groaned. Show off. He shrugged, grinning. What can I say? Years of practice. And maybe a little natural talent. Natural talent, huh? Amy said, narrowing her eyes. Sounds like a challenge. Jake's smile widened. Oh, it's definitely a challenge. Best of 3. Amy hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But if I win, you buy me dinner. And if I win? Jake asked, leaning in slightly, his voice dropping just enough to make her pulse skip. Amy swallowed, her brain scrambling for a witty comeback. Then you still buy me dinner. Because I'm not turning down free food. Jake laughed, the sound warm and easy. Fair enough. They played 2 more rounds and Amy managed to improve slightly. By the end, she had 5 pins down in one go, which felt like a personal victory. Jake teased her relentlessly, but it wasn't mean-spirited. It was playful, light, the kind of banter that made her cheeks ache from smiling. When they finally sat at a booth with slices of pepperoni pizza, Amy felt something shift. It wasn't just nostalgia or the thrill of competition. It was connection. Real, tangible, and terrifying in the best way. Jake leaned back, sipping his soda. You know, you're pretty good at this. Amy snorted. Liar. Okay, you're terrible, he said, grinning. But you've got heart. That counts for something. Amy rolled her eyes, but her smile lingered. So, tell me about the alley. What's your vision? Jake's expression softened, the teasing fading into something earnest. I want it to be more than just a bowling alley. A place where families hang out, kids have fun, people feel safe. Community, you know? Amy nodded, her marketing brain already spinning with ideas. I can work with that. And as Jake talked, animated, passionate, completely in his element, Amy realized something. This wasn't just a job. It was the start of something bigger. Something she hadn't planned for, but maybe something she needed. Chapter 5, Marketing Mayhem. Amy sat cross-legged on her childhood bed, laptop balanced on her knees, a half-empty mug of coffee on the nightstand. Her screen was a battlefield of tabs, social media trends, local business directories, and a Pinterest board titled Bowling Alley Glow Up. She was in full strategist mode and it felt good. No corporate red tape, no endless approval chains. Just her ideas, her vision, her rules. Her phone buzzed. Marcy, how's the big Pendleton project? Amy smirked and typed back. Brainstorming. Trying not to drown in hashtags. Marcy replied instantly. Don't overthink it. Jake's easy. Just make him look good. Winky face. Amy rolled her eyes, cheeks warming. It's business, Marcy. Sure. Business with dimples. Amy tossed the phone aside, muttering, not helping. She refocused on her notes. Jake wanted community, family vibes, something that felt like more than bowling. Amy's mind spun with ideas. Family night Fridays with discounted lanes and free arcade tokens. Birthday bash packages, cake, balloons, and a photo booth. A league launch for teens and adults, complete with themed nights. Social media campaigns featuring goofy videos of strikes, gutter balls, and Queen's Row gossip. She grinned at that last one. Queen's Row, the elevated perch where Jake's mom and her friends held court like bowling royalty, was marketing gold. People loved personality, and Pendleton Lanes had it in spades. By noon, Amy had a full pitch deck ready. Bright colors, catchy slogans, mock-up posts. She stared at the screen, pride swelling in her chest. This was good. This was her. Jake was waiting at the alley when she arrived, leaning against the counter like he owned the place, which technically he did. He looked relaxed, confident, and annoyingly handsome in a gray Henley that made Amy's brain short-circuit for a second. Hey, marketing maven, he said, flashing that grin. Ready to wow me? Amy lifted her laptop bag like a shield. Prepare to be dazzled. They settled into a booth, and Amy launched into her presentation. She talked about engagement strategies, local partnerships, and how to turn Pendleton Lanes into the go-to spot for family fun. Jake listened, nodding occasionally, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he leaned back, arms crossed. You're good. Amy blinked. That's it. You're good? I just gave you a master plan. Jake's lips twitched. Okay, you're really good. Like scary good. I didn't understand half those terms, but you sounded smart. Amy laughed, relief washing over her. That's the goal. Jake tapped the table. I like it. Let's do it. Amy froze. Just like that. Just like that, Jake said, his tone easy but his eyes warm. I trust you. The words hit her harder than she expected. Trust. It wasn't something she'd heard much in her old job, where every idea was dissected by committees. Here it was simple, direct, empowering. Okay, she said, smiling. Let's make Pendleton Lanes the hottest spot in town. Jake grinned. And if we fail, at least we'll have pizza. Amy laughed, shaking her head. You really think pizza solves everything, don't you? Pretty much, Jake said. his gaze lingering on her just a beat too long. But I've got a feeling we won't need it. Amy felt her pulse skip, and for the first time, she wondered if this project was going to change more than just a business. Chapter 6 at the Rival. Amy was halfway through drafting a social media calendar when her phone buzzed with a text from Marcy. Heads up, some slick guy from a big marketing firm was at the alley today, talking to Jake. Looked like he stepped out of a commercial for overpriced cologne. Amy froze, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. A rival firm? Already? She swallowed hard, her stomach nodding. This wasn't just about losing a client, it was about losing her first client. The one that could make or break her fledgling business. She typed back quickly. Did Jake seem interested? Marcy replied with a gif of a shrugging cartoon character. Couldn't tell. He listened. Didn't throw him out. Amy stared at the screen, her pulse ticking faster. She'd known competition was inevitable, but she hadn't expected it to show up wearing designer shoes and a smug smile this early in the game. By the time Amy walked into Pendleton Lanes that afternoon, her nerves were buzzing like a live wire. Jake was behind the counter, chatting with a couple of teenagers renting shoes. He looked up when he saw her, his smile easy, too easy. Hey Amy, he said, waving her over. How's my marketing genius? Amy forced a smile, setting her laptop bag on the counter. Busy. Always busy. Jake grinned. That's good. Busy means progress. Amy hesitated, then decided to rip off the band-aid. So, Marcy mentioned you had a visitor today. Jake's brows lifted. Word travels fast. She said it was someone from a big firm, Amy said, keeping her tone light even as her heart thudded. Trying to poach you? Jake leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his expression calm. Yeah, guy came in with a pitch. Lots of buzzwords, lots of promises. Said he could elevate the Pendleton brand to new heights. Amy rolled her eyes. Let me guess, he had a glossy brochure and a price tag that could fund a small country? Jake chuckled. Pretty much. And? Amy asked, trying not to sound desperate. And I told him I already have someone I trust, Jake said simply, his gaze steady on hers. Amy blinked, warmth flooding her chest. You did. Of course, Jake said, his tone easy but firm. You've got vision, Amy, and you actually care about this place. That guy cared about his commission. Amy exhaled, relief washing over her like a tide. Well, good, because I was ready to throw down in the parking lot. Jake laughed, the sound rich and warm. Now that I would have paid to see. Amy grinned, tension melting away. Don't tempt me. I fight dirty. Jake's eyes twinkled. Noted. They moved to a booth, Amy pulling out her laptop to show him the latest updates. But as she clicked through slides, her mind kept circling back to his words. I trust you. It wasn't just business, it felt personal. And that scared her more than any rival firm ever could. Because trust was a door, and behind it, something was waiting. Something Amy wasn't sure she was ready for, but couldn't stop herself from wanting. Chapter 7, A Strike of Emotion. The alley was quiet after hours, the neon lights casting a soft glow over polished lanes. Arcade machines blinked silently in the corner, their cheerful beeps replaced by the hum of the soda machine. Amy sat at a booth with her laptop open, papers spread like a fan around her. She was deep in campaign tweaks when Jake slid into the seat across from her, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. You look like you're plotting world domination, he said, setting 1 cup in front of her. Amy smiled tiredly. Just trying to make Pendleton Lanes the hottest spot in town. Jake leaned back, studying her. You've been at this for hours. I like getting it right, Amy said, taking a sip of coffee. Besides, this is my first big project. I can't afford to mess it up. Jake tilted his head, his expression softening. You're not going to mess it up. Amy gave a short laugh. Easy for you to say. You're not the one betting your future on a bowling alley. Jake's smile faded into something more thoughtful. You think I'm not betting my future on this place? Amy blinked. I guess I never thought about it that way. Jake's gaze drifted toward the lanes, his voice quieter now. I put everything I had into this. Savings, time, energy. Some days I wonder if I'm crazy, if I should have taken a safer route. Amy closed her laptop slowly, her heart tugging at the vulnerability in his tone. You're not crazy. You're brave. Jake looked back at her, his eyes warm but shadowed with doubt. Brave or stupid? Jury's still out. Amy reached across the table, her fingers brushing his hand before she could think better of it. Brave, she said firmly. You built something real, something that matters to people. That's not stupid. Jake's hand turned, his fingers curling lightly around hers. The touch was electric, simple, grounding, and yet charged with something that made Amy's breath hitch. For a moment, the world narrowed to that booth, that touch, that look in his eyes. I guess that makes us both brave, Jake said softly. Amy's pulse thudded in her ears. She wanted to say something witty, something light to break the tension, but the words tangled in her throat. His thumb brushed her knuckles, and her heart did a somersault. Then, because the universe has a twisted sense of humor, Marcy's voice rang out from the entrance. Jake, you left the back door unlocked again. Amy jerked her hand back like she'd touched a live wire, her cheeks flaming. Jake cleared his throat, leaning back as Marcy strode toward them, oblivious to the emotional earthquake she just caused. "Seriously?" Marcy said, tossing her keys on the counter. "Do you want raccoons running the snack bar?" Jake shot Amy a quick, almost sheepish smile before turning to his sister. "Not my dream scenario." Amy forced a laugh, her heart still racing. She opened her laptop again, pretending to focus on her notes, but her mind was a whirl of questions. What just happened? And what would have happened if Marcy hadn't walked in? Chapter 8, The Big Event. The Saturday of the promotional tournament dawned bright and chaotic. Amy arrived at Pendleton Lanes armed with a clipboard, a laptop, and enough nervous energy to power the neon lights for a week. The parking lot was already filling up, families juggling bowling bags, kids darting toward the arcade, and a local radio station van blasting pop music like they were hosting a concert. Inside, the alley buzzed like a hive. Balloons bobbed from every table, banners stretched across the walls, and the smell of pizza mingled with the sweet scent of funnel cakes from the food truck parked outside. Amy had planned every detail: discounted lanes, free arcade tokens, a photo booth with goofy props, and a live-streamed strike challenge for social media. It was ambitious. It was bold. It was teetering on the edge of disaster, because the photo booth printer had jammed. The DJ was late, and the mascot, a giant bowling pin named Penny, was stuck in traffic. Amy was mid-sprint toward the photo booth when Jake intercepted her, catching her elbow. "Whoa, slow down, marketing maven. You're going to burn a hole in the floor." Amy blew out a breath. "Printer's dead, DJ's MIA, and Penny is apparently sightseeing." Jake grinned, maddeningly calm. "So, a normal event." Amy glared. "Normal for who?" "For anyone who's ever thrown a party," Jake said, his tone soothing. "Relax. People are having fun. Look around." Amy did, and he was right. Kids were shrieking with laughter in the arcade. Parents were cheering at the lanes, and Queen's Row was in full gossip mode. Jake's mom and her friends waving like royalty from their perch. The chaos was real, but so was the joy. Still, Amy's perfectionist brain refused to let go. "The photo booth. I'll fix it," Jake said, already moving toward the jammed printer. "You handle the DJ." Amy blinked. "You know how to fix a printer?" Jake shot her a grin over his shoulder. "I own a bowling alley. I'm basically a part-time mechanic." Amy laughed despite herself, then dashed toward the entrance just as the DJ strolled in, sunglasses perched on his head like he was late to Coachella. She wrangled him into position, cranked up the music, and by the time she returned, Jake had the printer humming like new. "Show off," she muttered, but her smile gave her away. "Teamwork," Jake corrected, handing her a freshly printed photo strip of two kids wearing oversized sunglasses and feather boas. "We make a good one." Amy's heart did a little flip at that. She wanted to say something light, something that didn't sound like "yes, we do, and also I might be falling for you." But before she could, a crash echoed from lane 7. They both turned to see a toddler sitting triumphantly in the middle of the lane, arms raised like a champion, while his parents scrambled to retrieve him. Amy groaned. "I'll handle it." Jake grinned. "I'll grab the mop." By evening, the chaos had settled into a warm hum of laughter and clinking glasses. The tournament was a hit, the photo booth was cranking out strips, and Penny had finally arrived, albeit sweaty and apologetic. Amy stood near the counter, watching families pose for selfies, teens cheer each other on, and Jake moved through the crowd like he belonged to every person there. He caught her eye across the room, his smile slow and genuine. And in that moment, Amy realized something. This wasn't just a successful event. It was proof that she could do this, build something, make it matter. And maybe, just maybe, share it with someone who believed in her as much as she believed in herself. Chapter 9, Misunderstandings. The alley was quiet again, the post-event glow lingering like the scent of pizza in the air. Amy had spent the day basking in the success of the tournament. Social media engagement was through the roof. Families were already booking birthday parties, and Jake had been grinning like a man who just won the lottery. Everything felt perfect, until it didn't. Amy had come back that evening to grab her forgotten laptop. She slipped through the side door, humming softly, when voices drifted from the office near the back. Jake's voice, low, steady, and another, unfamiliar tone. Male, slick, confident. "I'm just saying," the stranger said, his words sharp as polished glass. "We can take Pendleton Lanes to the next level. National exposure. Influencer campaigns. You'll be swimming in revenue." Amy froze, her hand tightening on the strap of her bag. The rival firm. The cologne guy. Her stomach dropped. Jake's voice followed, quieter but clear enough to slice through her chest. "I'll think about it. Think about it." The words hit like a bowling ball to the gut. Amy felt heat rush to her face. Anger, embarrassment, something raw and ugly. After everything, the trust, the teamwork, the late nights, he was considering ditching her for a glossy brochure and empty promises? She backed away before they could see her, her pulse pounding in her ears. By the time she reached her car, her thoughts were a storm. Of course. Why wouldn't he? I'm small, new, unproven. He probably hired me out of pity. The drive home was a blur of headlights and self-doubt. She ignored Marcy's texts, ignored the cheerful ping of notifications from the event's success. All she could hear was Jake's voice. I'll think about it. The next morning, Amy sat at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched coffee. Her mom bustled around, humming, while her dad read the paper. Amy tried to smile, tried to act normal, but her chest felt hollow. Her phone buzzed again. Marcy, you okay? Jake says you ghosted him last night. Amy typed back with stiff fingers. Busy. Tell him I'll send the final report soon. Seconds later, Marcy called. Amy sighed and answered. Hey, what's going on? Marcy demanded. Jake looks like someone stole his favorite bowling ball. Amy swallowed hard. Nothing. Just business stuff. Marcy snorted. Liar. Spill. Amy hesitated, then blurted. I heard him talking to that rival guy. He said he'd think about it. There was a pause. Then Marcy's laughter exploded through the phone. Oh my God. Amy. He was being polite. Amy blinked. Polite? Yes. Marcy said, still laughing. Jake told me the guy wouldn't shut up, so he said he'd think about it just to get him out the door. He's not leaving you. He's obsessed with your ideas. And newsflash, he's kind of obsessed with you. Amy's cheeks flamed. Marcy, don't Marcy me, her friend said, voice smug now. You two have sparks flying like a 4th of July barbecue. Stop panicking and go talk to him. Amy stared at the phone, her heart doing that ridiculous flip again. Maybe Marcy was right. Maybe she jumped to conclusions. But the thought of facing Jake now, after her silent meltdown, felt like walking into a spotlight naked. Still, she couldn't avoid him forever. That evening, Amy found herself back at the alley, clutching her laptop like a shield. Jake was behind the counter sorting receipts. He looked up when she walked in, his smile slow and warm, but tinged with something else. Concern. Hey, he said softly. You okay? Amy swallowed, her throat dry. Can we talk? Jake nodded, setting the papers aside. Yeah, let's talk. And as Amy followed him to the quiet booth in the corner, her heart pounded with equal parts dread and hope, because this conversation could change everything. Chapter 10: The Apology. Jake slid into the booth across from Amy, his expression calm but searching. The hum of the soda machine and the distant clatter of pins filled the silence between them. Amy gripped her laptop bag like it was a lifeline, her pulse thudding in her ears. Okay, Jake said gently. Talk to me. What's going on? Amy swallowed hard, forcing herself to meet his eyes. I might have overheard you yesterday, talking to that guy from the big firm. Jake's brows lifted slightly, but he didn't look defensive, just curious. You mean the guy who wouldn't stop pitching me like we were on a game show? Amy gave a weak laugh. Yeah, that guy. You said you'd think about it. Jake leaned back, exhaling slowly. Ah, that. He rubbed the back of his neck, his voice warm but firm. Amy, I only said that to get him out the door. He was relentless. I wasn't about to start a debate in the middle of my office. Amy blinked, her cheeks heating. So, you weren't actually considering it? Jake's gaze locked on hers, steady and sure. Not for a second. I've got everything I need right here. He tapped the table lightly, his meaning clear. You. The word hit her like a strike, clean, sharp, undeniable. Amy's throat tightened. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have jumped to conclusions. Jake's smile softened, his eyes warm. You care. That's not something to apologize for. Amy let out a shaky breath, her shoulders relaxing for the first time in 24 hours. I guess I panicked. This is my first big project, and I didn't want to lose it. Jake leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. You're not going to lose it. Or me. The air between them shifted, charged, intimate, humming with something that had been building for weeks. Amy felt her heart race, her pulse syncing with the quiet rhythm of his words. She wanted to say something witty, something safe, but all she could manage was a whisper. Jake? He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers, then curling gently around her hand. The touch was warm, grounding, and yet electric enough to make her breath hitch. His thumb traced slow circles against her skin, and for a moment, the world narrowed to that booth, that connection. I've been wanting to do this for a while, Jake said softly. Amy's voice trembled. Do what? Jake's smile was slow, deliberate, the kind that made her stomach flip. This. He stood, tugging her gently to her feet. Before she could process, his arms were around her, pulling her close in a hug that wasn't just a hug. It was steady, strong, and full of unspoken promises. Amy melted against him, her head resting against his chest, her heart pounding like a drum. When he pulled back, his hands lingered on her arms, his gaze locked on hers. For one breathless second, Amy thought he was going to kiss her. She wanted him to. Every nerve in her body screamed for it. But then Jake smiled, a smile that said soon, and stepped back just enough to keep her guessing. Come on, he said lightly, breaking the tension with a grin. I owe you dinner. Best pizza in town. Amy laughed, her cheeks flushed, her heart still racing. You really think pizza solves everything? Jake winked. Pretty much. And as they walked toward the counter, Side by side, Amy realized something. This wasn't just an apology. It was a beginning. Chapter 11, The Leap. The weeks after the tournament were a whirlwind. Amy's phone buzzed constantly with new inquiries, birthday parties, family nights, even a local charity asking if Pendleton Lanes could host a fundraiser. Her social media campaign had gone viral in the small-town way. Shared posts, tagged photos, and a flood of comments praising the alley's new vibe. Amy sat at her dining table one morning, sipping coffee while reviewing analytics. Engagement was up 300%, bookings had doubled, and Jake's revenue projections were climbing like a rocket. For the first time since she'd hit send on that resignation email, Amy felt something she hadn't felt in months. Certainty. She could do this. She was doing this. Her phone buzzed again. Jake. Dinner tonight? My treat. No pizza this time. Promise. Amy smiled, her heart doing that ridiculous flip. She typed back, deal. Where? Surprise. Dress nice. That evening, Amy walked into Pendleton Lanes expecting casual, but Jake had transformed the place. The neon lights glowed softer, the lanes were empty, and a single table sat near the center, draped in white linen, candles flickering gently. A bottle of wine waited, along with 2 plates of something that smelled divine. Amy stopped in her tracks. Jake. What is this? Jake appeared from behind the counter, wearing a crisp button-down that made her brain short-circuit for a second. He smiled, slow and warm. Dinner, like I promised. Amy laughed, a little breathless. You didn't have to do all this. I wanted to, Jake said simply, pulling out a chair for her. You've done so much for this place. For me. Amy sat, her pulse thrumming. It's my job. Jake shook his head, settling across from her. No, Amy. It's more than that. You didn't just market an alley. You gave it life. You gave me hope. Amy blinked, her throat tightening. Jake. He reached across the table, his fingers brushing hers before curling gently around her hand. His voice was low, steady, and full of something that made her heart ache in the best way. I've been thinking about this for a while, he said, and I'm done pretending it's just business. I like you, Amy, more than I probably should. And if you feel even a fraction of what I feel, he smiled, a little crooked, a little vulnerable, then maybe we stop fighting it. Amy's breath caught. Every nerve in her body screamed yes, but her brain, always cautious, whispered don't rush. Except this didn't feel rushed. Felt inevitable. Like every late-night strategy session, every laugh, every spark had been leading here. She squeezed his hand, her voice soft but sure. I feel it. Jake's smile widened, relief and joy flickering across his face. He stood, tugging her gently to her feet. The neon glow bathed them in soft color as he cupped her face, his touch warm and steady. And then, finally, he kissed her. It wasn't tentative. It wasn't rushed. It was everything Amy hadn't known she was waiting for. Sweet, deep, and full of promise. The kind of kiss that rewrote the rules, that said this is real, this is us, this is just the beginning. When they broke apart, breathless and grinning, Jake whispered against her forehead, You're amazing. Amy laughed softly, her heart soaring. You're not so bad yourself. And as they stood there, wrapped in each other under the hum of neon lights, Amy realized something. She'd taken the leap. In business. In love. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of falling. Chapter 12, Love and Lanes. Amy had faced high-stakes presentations, tight deadlines, and even a toddler crawling down a bowling lane. But nothing prepared her for dinner with both families. It started innocently enough. Jake suggested introducing her to his mom, and Amy thought, sure, how hard can that be? Then her mom insisted on hosting, and suddenly, Amy was staring at a dining table that looked like a Thanksgiving parade had exploded. Her mom had gone all out. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, 3 kinds of pie. Her dad was polishing the good silverware like they were expecting royalty. And in a way, they were, because Jake's mom wasn't coming alone. She was bringing her sisters, the infamous Queen's Row trio. Amy stood in the kitchen, smoothing her dress for the 10th time, while her mom fussed with the centerpiece. Pumpkin, relax, her mom said, adjusting a vase of flowers. You look beautiful. Amy groaned softly. Mom, please don't call me Pumpkin in front of Jake. Her dad wandered in, grinning. Pumpkin, you'll always be Pumpkin. Amy buried her face in her hands. This is going to be a disaster. The doorbell rang, and chaos officially began. Jake walked in first, looking unfairly handsome in a navy blazer, carrying a bottle of wine like a peace offering. Behind him came his mom, elegant, smiling, and 2 women who looked ready to turn dinner into a live episode of Bowling Alley Confidential. Hi, Amy said brightly, her voice an octave too high. Come in. Introductions flew like confetti. Jake's mom hugged Amy warmly. His aunts complimented the curtains, and within 5 minutes, Queen's Row gossip was in full swing. So, one aunt said, spearing a potato with surgical precision, Jake tells us you're the genius behind the tournament. Everyone's talking about it. Amy smiled, cheeks warm. It was a team effort. Jake's mom leaned in, eyes twinkling. Team effort, huh? Sounds like you two make a good pair. Amy nearly choked on her water. Jake, of course, looked amused. We do, he said smoothly, his hand brushing Amy's under the table like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her mom beamed. They've been spending a lot of time together. Mom, Amy hissed under her breath, but it was too late. The Queen's Row trio had locked onto her like heat-seeking missiles. Oh, we know, Jake's aunt said, grinning. Half the alley knows. You two were practically glowing at the tournament. Amy covered her face with her napkin, wishing for a trapdoor under her chair. Jake chuckled, leaning closer. Relax, he murmured. They're harmless. Harmless, Amy whispered back. They're like the CIA with better hair. Jake laughed softly, his hand squeezing hers under the table. A quiet reassurance that made her heart flip. By dessert, the interrogation had softened into laughter. Stories flew, Jake's childhood mishaps, Amy's high school crush, thanks, Marcy, who had shown up halfway through dinner like a chaos fairy, and her dad's endless supply of dad jokes. The room buzzed with warmth, teasing, and the kind of joy that felt like home. As Amy walked Jake to the door later, her cheeks aching from smiling, he paused on the porch, the night air cool against their skin. You survived, he said, grinning. Barely, Amy muttered. Your family is intense. Jake chuckled. You handled them like a pro. Amy smiled, her heart swelling. Thanks for being here. Jake's gaze softened, his voice low. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. And then he kissed her again, slow, sweet, under the porch light, while inside, Queen's Row probably had their noses pressed to the window. Amy didn't care. For the first time, she felt like everything was exactly where it was meant to be. Chapter 13, Happily Ever After with a twist. The alley hummed with life on a Friday night, pins crashing, laughter echoing, the scent of pizza mingling with the faint sweetness of funnel cakes from the snack bar. Amy stood near the counter, watching a group of kids celebrate a birthday party, their faces lit with neon glow. Her heart swelled with pride. This was hers. Not just the campaign, not just the success, this feeling, purpose, joy, a second chance at life on her own terms. She glanced toward lane 10, where Jake was helping a little boy line up his shot. He crouched low, patient and smiling, his easy charm making the kid beam like he just met a superhero. Amy felt that familiar flip in her stomach, the one that had started as a spark and grown into something steady, something real. When Jake finally walked over, his grin was slow and warm, the kind that made her knees feel like jelly. You look like someone who's plotting world domination, he teased. Amy laughed softly, just soaking it in. Jake leaned against the counter, his eyes on hers. You should. You made this happen. Amy shook her head. We made this happen. Jake's smile deepened. True. Which is why. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a sleek folder, sliding it across the counter toward her. Amy blinked. What's this? Open it, Jake said, his tone casual. But his eyes held a glint of something more. Amy flipped the folder open and froze. Inside was a partnership agreement. Pendleton Lanes Marketing and Events, LLC. Her name, his name, side by side. Her breath caught. Jake! He shrugged, but his voice was steady, earnest. You've already turned this place around. You've got vision, drive, and about 100 ideas I can't keep up with. I don't just want you running campaigns. I want you running this with me. Amy stared at him, her heart pounding like a drum. You're serious? Jake stepped closer, his smile softening into something that made her chest ache in the best way. Dead serious. Business partners. Life partners, if you'll have me. Amy laughed, a shaky, breathless sound that melted into a grin. You really know how to pitch. Jake grinned back. Years of practice. She closed the folder, her fingers trembling. Not from fear, but from the sheer weight of what this meant. A leap, another one. And for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Yes, she said, her voice firm, her smile bright. To both. Jake's eyes lit up, joy flickering like neon. He pulled her into his arms, and when his lips met hers, it was everything. Sweet, deep, and full of promise. The kind of kiss that said forever isn't long enough. The sound of pins crashing broke the moment, followed by a cheer from Queen's Row. Amy glanced up to see Jake's mom and her friends waving like they'd just witnessed a royal engagement. Marcy was there too, grinning like a cat who'd swallowed the canary. Amy groaned, burying her face against Jake's chest. They're never going to let us live this down. Jake chuckled, kissing the top of her head. Let them talk. We've got work to do. Amy smiled, her heart soaring as laughter and music swirled around them. She had her dream, her purpose, her person. And as the alley buzzed with life, Amy knew one thing for sure. This was just the beginning.